Dorothy Stratten was only 20 years old, poised to leave behind a life of obscurity for Hollywood stardom, when her final minutes became the stuff of nightmares. The terrifying. Last Minutes of Dorothy Stratten reveals how the same man who discovered her at a Dairy Queen, the flashy, calculating Paul Snider, would become her killer, sabotaging her meteoric rise from small-town innocence to Playmate of the Year.
But this year you got quite a bunch of things, right?
I got a $65,000 Russian sable fur coat and a $25,000 check and a $26,000 Jaguar and a $13,000 bathtub. It's about 10 people.
Oh, how lovely. What are we going to tell the other 8? Not to...
As her world expanded and Snider's control slipped, the danger closing in wasn't just jealousy. It was something far deadlier lurking in plain sight. What really happened in those fateful hours, and why did no one see the horror coming until it was too late? In the spring of 1978, behind the counter of a Dairy Queen on East Hastings Street, Dorothy Stratten handed out soft-serve cones and chocolate-dipped bars for minimum wage. At 18, she was tall and shy, a steady presence who worked long hours to help her mother cover the bills. The family's tiny house in East Vancouver left little room for privacy or dreams. Dorothy had spent her high school years balancing straight A's with closing shifts, her world defined by family obligations and the hum of the ice cream machine. That's where Paul Snider appeared. He was almost a decade older, gliding up in a black Corvette, mink coat draped over his shoulders, a jeweled Star of David flashing on his chest. Snider was a familiar figure in Vancouver's nightlife, known for his flashy style and his reputation as someone who always wanted more. He watched Dorothy work, saw the way she kept her head down, and recognized something he could use: her innocence, her drive, and her lack of experience with men like him. Snider began his approach with practiced charm. He bought Dorothy flowers, complimented her on things she felt uncertain about, and lingered until he got her number from a coworker. He took her out for dinners that outshone anything she'd known, surprised her with gifts, and even escorted her to her senior prom, though he was 26 and she was barely out of high school. For a girl who'd spent years worrying about rent, Snider's attention felt like a door opening to a bigger life. But beneath the generous gestures was calculation. Snider knew how to spot vulnerability. He offered Dorothy not just romance, but the promise of escape from family stress, from financial worry, from the limits of her small world. When he suggested a photo shoot that could change her future, Dorothy listened. She didn't see the trap being set, only the possibility of something more. The decision that followed would carry her far from Vancouver and deeper into Snider's control. Los Angeles in the late 1970s promised everything Dorothy Stratten had never known: sunshine, fame, and the kind of attention that turns heads in every room. After the call from Playboy, Dorothy left Vancouver behind and landed in a city built on dreams. She was just 18. The magazine named her Miss August 1979, and almost overnight, she became one of Hugh Hefner's favorites. A new face at the mansion, a fresh star in the Playboy universe. Dorothy's soft-spoken charm and striking beauty set her apart from the crowd of hopefuls.
And this is the result. Yesterday she was named Playmate of the Year. And we thought we would save the dessert till last.
Well, sure,
tonight. Would you welcome Dorothy Stratten? By golly, that's you.
Pardon me?
By golly, that's you. You really are a lovely young lady.
Thank you. you.
I
At
saw
the Century City Playboy Club, she wore the iconic bunny suit, greeting guests as a door bunny, too young to serve drinks but impossible to ignore. Photographers and producers circled, sensing something special. The magazine's editors praised her for being down-to-earth, quick to laugh, and completely unprepared for the spotlight. She posed for covers, appeared at parties, and signed autographs as her images ran in print across the country. Hefner took a personal interest, introducing her to agents and managers, eager to see her cross over from centerfold to screen. Dorothy's star was rising fast, and with it, her sense of possibility. But amid the glamour, Paul Snider remained close by. He moved with her to Los Angeles, watching every step, insisting on being her manager, her husband, her gatekeeper. In June 1979, they married at City Hall. Dorothy wore a simple dress, still believing she owed her new life to the man who first handed her the key. By 1980, she was crowned Playmate of the Year, holding the title at just 20. Cameras flashed, crowds cheered, and Dorothy smiled for the world. Behind the scenes, Snider's presence grew heavier, his grip tightening as Hollywood opened its doors to her alone. Dorothy's face began to appear everywhere, on magazine covers, billboards, and movie posters. After being named Playmate of the Year in 1980, she landed her first leading film role in the sci-fi comedy Galaxina, released that summer. Directors and casting agents started calling, drawn to her natural charm and a camera presence that felt effortless. On the set of They All Laughed, a romantic comedy directed by Peter Bogdanovich, Dorothy found herself working alongside Audrey Hepburn and John Ritter. Bogdanovich saw something rare in her, an innocence untouched by Hollywood, a vulnerability that made her magnetic on screen. The two grew close during filming, their connection deepening beyond the script. Dorothy, once shy and uncertain, began to carry herself with new confidence. She started making decisions about her own career, choosing roles that interested her, and spending more time with friends from the set. For the first time, her world was expanding beyond the narrow orbit of Paul Snider. The more Dorothy flourished, the more she realized that the future she wanted might finally be within reach. Paul Snider's world narrowed as Dorothy's career soared. The money that once flowed from her photo shoots and public appearances now paid for private investigators, Snider's way of keeping tabs on her every move. Each week, invoices arrived for surveillance work he ordered, all funded by Dorothy's checks. He watched from a distance, tracking her dinners, her phone calls, her growing circle in Hollywood. When Dorothy was on set, Snider called the house non-stop, demanding updates, grilling roommates about who she was with and when she'd be home. If she didn't answer, the calls multiplied, sometimes 10 or 12 in an afternoon. Friends noticed her unease, the way she'd glance at the clock or flinch when the phone rang. Snider's failed business schemes left him dependent on her income, and the imbalance gnawed at him. He told anyone who would listen that Dorothy owed him everything. Yet, behind closed doors, he raged about being shut out, locked out of meetings, left off guest lists, reduced to a shadow in her new life. The more he lost control, the more desperate his tactics became. Snider's paranoia tightened around Dorothy like a vice, setting the stage for choices that would soon turn deadly. On August 13, 1980, Paul Snider circled a classified ad in a Los Angeles newspaper and arranged to buy a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun. He met the seller in a parking lot that evening, paid in cash, and brought the weapon home, never registering it, never telling anyone except for a few offhand remarks about taking up hunting. The next morning, Dorothy Stratten prepared to meet Snyder at the house they once shared, planning to finalize the terms of their divorce. Friends urged her not to go alone, but Dorothy insisted on handling it herself. She believed he would be reasonable, that civility could win out over bitterness. At noon, she arrived as planned. Snyder was waiting, the newly purchased shotgun hidden inside. The air in the house was thick with unspoken tension. Dorothy set her purse on the living room table, still thinking this would be a simple negotiation. But every detail, the gun, the closed blinds, the silence, signaled a different reality. In those final hours, the sense of inevitability pressed in. Dorothy, always trusting, never saw the danger for what it was. Snyder, unable to accept her freedom, had already made his choice. The clock ticked toward violence, and no one could stop what was coming. At 11 p.m. on August 14, 1980, the quiet of a West Los Angeles neighborhood was shattered by the discovery inside a modest home on Southwest Gate Avenue. Dorothy Stratten, just 20 years old, lay lifeless in the bedroom she once shared with Paul Snyder. Police found a single shotgun blast had ended her life. The scene carried the unmistakable signs of rage and control, a crime committed at close range, leaving no doubt about the intent. Stratten's purse sat open in the living room, untouched. The cash she'd brought for the divorce settlement remained where she'd left it. Within hours, word spread through Hollywood. News desks lit up with calls, and television crews gathered outside the house, searching for answers. Stratten's friends, co-stars, and fellow playmates reeled in disbelief. Peter Bogdanovich, still in New York, received the news by phone and collapsed in grief. At the Playboy Mansion, Hugh Hefner canceled all events and issued a somber statement. The city's sense of promise gave way to shock and mourning. On August 18th, hundreds gathered at Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park for Dorothy's funeral. Her grave, a few rows from Marilyn Monroe's, became a place of pilgrimage for those who saw in her both innocence and the high cost of fame. The tragedy left a wound in Hollywood's collective memory, a reminder that even the brightest promise can be lost in an instant. On August 14, 1980, Dorothy Stratten was killed at just 20 years old, ending a life and career that had captured national attention. Police records and court documents confirm Paul Snyder's escalating control, culminating in his purchase of a shotgun a day before the murder. Evidence gathered from forensic reports and witness statements showed that, despite warnings from friends, Dorothy met Snyder alone to finalize their separation. The exact details of what was said in those final moments remain unknown. No surviving witness can answer why she underestimated the danger. In the years since, the case has come to symbolize the dangers of coercive control and the dark side of sudden fame. Stratten's story is still cited in discussions about domestic violence and exploitation in Hollywood. The facts are clear. A star on the rise lost to violence that could have been prevented. Her legacy remains a warning and a call for vigilance that continues today. Now you might be wondering what happened to Snyder. Well, after committing the crime, he decided he too would suffer the same fate, once again showing his need to maintain control.